Namanda, 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 Namanda. Bujoe Midanyorai Nyodoe Sange Bujo Shaka Nyorai Niyodoe Jo Sange Bujo Jipo Nyorai Niyodo Jo Sange We are gathered here today in the presence of Amida Buddha to commemorate our May 2022 Shotsuki Hoyo, where we remember those members who passed away in the month of May and were born into the Pure Land. On this day, we remember Komataro Kondo, Sato Yamashita, Dan Sagami, Ryoroku Asahara, Shuichi Fukui, Tamako Tamura, Chojiro Kawabata, Taki Sonoda, Goroku Kubo, Naonobu Mizukami, ごはて吉田、ゆき岡田、とら高橋、辰巳武田、村吉村上、良一岩切、吉と有馬、よしこ Travis、千代美谷口、Ted 勝松本、のりお平山、清子杉岡、清長井、ふさこおむろフリア、Gladys Jizzy、上地 Tom 塩谷、千代ジョー林、Harry 春雪谷口、美智子水本、Ronald Michael Ballack、三郎楠本、幸子吉田、緑小本。May the fragrance of the incense teach us the purity of our intention. May the beauty of the flowers offered remind us of life's great impermanence. And may the light that burns brightly teach us of Amida's great wisdom and compassion. Please join me in Gasho. Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namandouts, Namandouts, Namandouts. Busen Amida Kyo Nyoze Gamon Ichiji Bunzai Shae Kokugi Juki Kodoku o Yodai Bikushu Senni 150 人 大勢大あらかん中小知識長老者利法マカモ県年マカカショマカカセンマカクジラリハタシュリハンダガナンダアナンダラゴラキョボンハダイビンズルハラダカルダイマカコヒナアクラアヌルダ妙勢と正代弟子病床菩薩マカサ文殊師利法王子アイタ菩薩賢打寛大菩薩上昇人菩薩如妙勢と正代菩薩牛釈大加人と無料小手大祝二次文豪長老舎利本樹税裁法多十万六仏道宇世界妙案極楽合同有部大阿弥陀根源在世法舎利法井戸学妙意極楽合国修上無宿単樹昇楽光明極楽舎利法極楽国土七十乱十七十乱も七十五十改税司法主相違女成功非国妙案極楽舎利法極楽国土牛ポチ白毒水十万五中地帯十人紅茶富士四辺街道金言ルリハリ五条上右老各薬医金言ルリハリ釈古釈主面の二言式地地中連芸大尿舎利小式小古大式陽古釈式釈古白式白古二妙高見舎利本国ら国土上寿尿税空毒称号宇舎利本非部国土調査天学黄金維持中夜六時二万だらけ広告修上無常 上位小単各位へ国上州名家空用他法十万の区部作為直次元道本国本直協業者理法国ら国土上州尿税空読将軍物資者理法非国上有主従奇妙座敷市長白国空弱オム者理下領便が具名師匠税小州長主位や六時水和下音言論年長合根合理七宝大分発祥道部尿税東方合同修上門税音に開実年仏年法年祖者理法尿物に市長新税財法少々小医者が非部国道無三幕主者理本合部国道上無三幕道神妙画教新税小州長改税や弥陀部抑量本願千流変化少佐者理本非部国道未不水道小法五十牛法蘭も水未妙音非尿百千十学道時空差門税四社開示年上年仏年法年創始し者理本合部国道上寿尿税功徳将軍ナモアミダンブナモアミダンブナモアミダンブナモアミダンブなじぽえみじん世界の念仏の主情をみそなわし摂取して捨てざれば阿弥陀と名付け立て祀るご者人寿の如来は万行の生前嫌いつつ妙法不思議の真善が等しく人へに進めしむシャリホンお如意運が非仏がこご阿弥陀シャリホン非仏公明無量生じ報告無償生下税公合意阿弥陀不捨利本非仏寿命牛語人味無量無辺阿蘇義故公明阿弥陀捨利本阿弥陀仏上仏如来お根自公不捨利本非仏無量無辺正門弟子海あらか非税三十四小のうち消防殺種薬部尿税シャリホ 異部国土上住尿税空毒将軍ウシャリホ極楽国土修上少者改税やビバチご中他を一生不詳ご主人他非税三十章の知識単価無料無変阿蘇義公設者利本修上門者応答本願願書非国小医者が特用尿税症状善人具へ一生者利を不可死後前不可一生前言福徳意念特徴非国者利法脈前難死前四人門説なみだぶ主持名語脈一日脈二日脈三日脈四日脈五日脈六日脈七日一子不落五人人名十字阿弥陀仏幼少少寿現在午前前人十字神父天道即徳往生阿弥陀仏国楽国土者利本願県税利公正死後脈修上門税拙者応答本願消費国土者利本尿が根者三段阿弥陀仏不可思議空毒逃亡薬阿宿美仏趣味総仏大趣味仏趣味公仏尿仏尿税と高賀者首相仏各王合国水工場絶素偏風三千大先生界戦場実語尿頭修上等身税少佐不可思議空毒一切小仏小五年魚チリ本願坊世界う日が頭部尿門公仏大円見仏趣味頭仏無料精進部尿税等合賀者首相部各王合国水工場絶素偏風三千大先生界戦場実語尿頭修上等身税少佐不可思議空毒一切小仏小五年魚チャリ本裁法世界無料十仏無料総仏無料道仏大公仏大名仏放送仏上皇仏尿税等合賀者首相仏各王合国水工場絶素偏風三千大先生界戦場実語尿頭修上等身税少佐不可思議空毒一切小部小五年業者利本法法世界有縁見仏最小恩仏難小部二小仏無名仏尿税と合賀者首相仏各王合国水工場絶素偏風三千大先生界戦場実語尿頭修上等身税少佐不可思議空毒一切小仏小五年業者利本下法世界牛死仏妙門仏妙高仏達満仏報道仏自法仏尿税と合賀者首相仏各王合国水工場絶素偏風三千大先生界戦場実語尿頭修上等身絶少三不可思議空毒一切小仏小五年業者利本上法世界無本の仏宿王仏工場仏高校仏大円見仏座敷法見言師仏シャラ十王仏法慶特仏見日祭儀仏尿臭味線仏尿税等合賀者首相仏各王合国水工場絶素偏風三千大先生界戦場実語尿頭修上等身税少佐不可思議空毒一切小仏小五年業ナモアミランブナモアミダンブナモアミダンブナモアミダンブナジ 南進ののりをとき五辱悪性のためにとて小上五年せしめたり小仏の五年小上は悲願成就のゆえなれば今後心の縁人は皆の大恩ほうずべしシャリホンおにょいうんが学校名医一切小仏小五年行シャリホン薬善難死善四に門税小仏小説名牛教名者聖小善難死善四人会一切小仏九小五年会徳不大天法はのくたら三脈三宝大成功者利法尿と会と心情学校義小部小説者利法百人異本願高本願東本願翼小阿弥陀仏国者聖上人と会徳不大天法はのくたら三脈三宝大法非国土脈一生脈根性脈当初成功者利本上善難死善四に脈信者応本願小非国土者利本尿が根者小三小部不可思議空読非小部と百小説が不可思議空読にさ前後釈無二仏の偉人な慶氏寺のシャバ国土五辱悪世公辱賢辱煩悩辱修上辱明辱中徳はのくたら三脈三宝大一生修上先生一切世間難死死法シャリ本当地が王五辱悪世四時難事徳はのくたら三脈三宝大一切世間摂氏難死死法税人な不摂氏教義シャリ本義小ビッグ一切世間天人な修羅と門仏小説安義真珠サラインニコ仏説阿弥陀経ナモアミダンブナモアミダンブナモアミダンブナモアミダンブナ五辱悪事悪世界辱悪邪見の主上には 弥陀の妙運を与えてぞごうじゃの処分進めたるナモアミダブをとのればジポウ無量の勝負歌百十千十いねうして喜び守りたもなりがにしくどくびょうどうせいさいどうほんぼ大心おうじょうあんなこ。ナモアミダ仏、ナモアミダ仏、ナモアミダ仏、ナマンダーツ、ナマンダーツ、ナマンダーツ、ナマンダーツ、ナマンダーツ。Please join me in Gasho. Nama. The light of wisdom exceeds all measure, and every finite living being receives this illumination that is like the dawn. So take refuge in Amida, the true and real light. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namandats, 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 namandats. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our Shotsuki service for the month of May. For those of you who do not remember, Shotsuki is a special service. We take a little bit of time and reflect on all of the members who have passed away in the month of May, from the founding of the temple to now. It is a wonderful time to reflect on the contributions, both economic and through physical labor, that helped to make the temple what it is today. But I think there is a deeper meaning behind this service as well, not just filial piety. So for many of us, or for many people who come to the temple, we also engage and take refuge in the teachings of Shinran Shonin. We also take refuge in the teachings of the Buddha. And that talks about the inconceivable and wonderful light that is Amida Buddha, that is infinite wisdom and compassion, that continues to work and illumine in this lifetime. So when we think about it, this is actually a really great parallel to how we commemorate all of the past members in every month. and their contributions to the temple, but also, in a sense, see how that reflects on the wisdom and compassion of Amida Buddha. Now, as you all know, I, myself, Reverend Tadao Koyama, did not build this temple from scratch. I did not erect this building. In fact, if anything, I kind of came in here and I was assigned by our bishop, Reverend Marvin Harada, and I came to this wonderful building. And I needed to rely on wonderful members like our president, Crystal Inge, or our Dharma School superintendent, Jun Akita, or many of the minister's assistants and other wonderful members to learn about the history of this temple, to learn about the many members who used to live nearby this temple, who used to work close to the temple, who would volunteer their time at the temple. And hearing these stories is always warm and gives me a wonderful and happy feeling. And this is very similar to the feeling that we have when we take refuge in Amida Buddha, when we take refuge in the teachings of the Dharma. We have this warm, almost very calm-like and centered feeling that gives us this sense of not of completion necessarily, but of satisfaction and wonderful this wonderful feeling of happiness, in a sense of pure joy, which is sort of the feeling that that is described in the Pure Land. So if anything, the reflection and the workings of the Pure Land are also working in this world of samsara as well. So thinking about all of these members, I can't help but wonder what inspired them. What drove them to sacrifice so much to pour into this community, to pour into this temple? Well, of course, the obvious answer is their fellow Buddhist travelers, their fellow community members. They relied on each other. They laughed with each other. They have cried with each other. They might have gotten into some arguments from time to time, but they might have made up as well. But all of these deep and wonderful meaningful experiences still exist in this temple today and will continue to exist as long as this temple building stands and as long as the Sangha who utilizes this building also continue to come. We take refuge in the Buddhist teachings because we realize, just like these members, our names as well, including my own, will be on a list of some kind, like the Shotsuki memorial list. And I sometimes wonder, myself, what others will think of me. Will others even know me? Will others even remember me? Will I be remembered? I don't have any children yet, so I'm not, but I'm hopefully, maybe someday. But that being said, even after I am gone, will people remember me? And it's not just a feeling that is driven out of ego, right? I'm wondering if these members who have long passed felt the same way. Will someone remember me? Well, of course we will. It's important that we remember this person, not for egocentric reasons, but for recognizing the great Buddhist teaching of interdependence and Amida Buddha's wisdom and compassion, the warm and glowing light that is Amida Buddha's wisdom and compassion. This sense of, this Buddhist sense of interdependence, this Buddhist sense of I must do the hardest work that I can, and I must do all that I can to support the temple so that future generations, people who are not Japanese American, can enjoy the temple as well. This is that feeling. This is, I think, the deep feeling that drove many of the members to continue supporting this temple, to continue having this refuge that we can all come to and listen to the deep teachings of Shinran Shonin and Shakyamuni Buddha. So when we think about it, these members, their influence still exists in this temple today. And because of that, it is, in my personal opinion, very similar to that feeling of Dharma activity when we see this in our everyday lives and know that the Dharma or the wisdom and compassion of Amida Buddha is still working purely for our benefit as Bonbu beings. So it is really important for us as members to constantly think about, I think, well, not constantly, but to often think about members who have been long past. And this is why we have the Shotsuki service. This is why we have a Taikyo service. This is why we have so many memorial services. Oftentimes, I've heard folks who are not Buddhists, but who are very familiar, maybe they're part of the Japanese community, or maybe they're married to someone in the Japanese community. But sometimes I have heard anecdotally some of these people saying things like, wow, you Buddhists are sure obsessed with death, or you Buddhists sure talk about death a lot, or you think about death a lot. And I think that's half true. We do mark many occasions where people have passed away. Like I said, whether it be a Shotsuki service or a Taikyo service, or even the services that mark the passing of Nirvana Day, where Shakyamuni Buddha passed into parinirvana, or when our Goshoki Hoonko, where our founder Shinran Shonin was born into the Pure Land. We have all of these memorials, and when we remember those or reflect on those who have gone before us. And yes, it's partially true that we do acknowledge the presence of death a lot, but we don't think of it in a morbid sense. We don't think of these stories in a morbid sense that would cause us to get really depressed or very sad or nihilistic even. We think of these stories as inspirations and as important lessons for our own mortality. We think of these stories as guides to our own life. We think of these people who have long passed before us as pioneers and as great teachers to teach us about the great impermanence of life. So this is why I believe this Shotsuki service is still so important to this day. We might get tired of hearing the sutras sometimes, or we might say, just get to the Dharma Talk, or just get to reading the names, and then I can turn it off because I've listened to the name. But it's also important to reflect on what their life meant and how they lived their lives as well. So with that in mind, I encourage all of us to once again deeply reflect on the members who have long passed before us in the month of May. And as the light, literally speaking, starts to last longer during these days, and let us not forget that spring is also kind of a time that symbolizes rebirth as well. So with that in mind, I would like to thank all of you for joining us today for our Shotsuki service. Please continue to stay safe and try to stay dry. We are headed for sort of a wet weekend with all the rain coming, but it is still a good time to reflect on the Dharma. So thank you all very much for joining our Shotsuki service today, our May Shotsuki service, and I look forward to seeing you all next month for our June Shotsuki service. And until we meet again, please join me in Gassho. Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Nam Mandabs, Nam Mandabs, Nam Mandabs.